Good morning. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Big Time Wrestling right here on KOFY TV 20. I'm Hank Renner Jr., your host, and today we've got a great show for you fans, exclusively for tonight, the Big Time Wrestling 20th anniversary show right there at the Mecca of Wrestling, if you will, in the Bay Area, the Newark Pavilion. October 28th, 7:30 p.m. start. We've got a great show for you. Here exclusively is the promoter of Big Time Wrestling for 20 years. Welcome, Kirk White.
Thank you very much, Hank. It's good to be here. A little early, but it's good to be here.
Sure is. We've got you up early. You're pumped for this great event.
Yep.
It started, though, folks, we're going to go back in time. And it all started, both Kirk and I grew up in the Bay Area watching a show, a TV show called Big Time Wrestling.
Right. Every Saturday mornings at 10 a.m., you'd channel 44 or channel 36 or wherever they would move around to. And, you know, you'd watch Ray Stevens, Pat Patterson, Kenji Shibuya, Woody Farmer, all these guys. And, you know, it was something you woke up to every Saturday morning and you wanted to watch wrestling. And then, you know, they'd have their shows at the Cal Palace, the San Jose Civic, Richmond Auditorium, and all throughout Northern California. It was quite a treat for a young lad.
It certainly was, and we saw heroes and villains. You get to boo the bad guys, you cheer for the good guys, especially Patterson.
Right.
You know, he had that great run there, and he was the big hero. He did it for me, and so. Big Time Wrestling, like everything else, the business changed, the territories changed, and in comes, you know, this big new national company. We turn on the TV and it's gone.
Yeah.
And here it is, and tell us how you got it back, started again, where your mission was to bring wrestling, independent wrestling, as it was in the old days, back to the Bay Area. How'd you do it?
I had no idea what I was getting into, Hank. I had 3 sports memorabilia stores in the Fremont, Newark area, and you know, I always loved watching wrestling, and one time there was a bar in Newark that a wrestler named Alexis Smirnoff was working at. Mm-hmm. So we all went over there and we tried to talk to him and get to know him a little bit, and one thing led to another and got to be pretty friendly with him, and he said, hey, Kirk, if you're interested, Ray Stevens is going to be moving back to Fremont. I go, really? When? He goes, well, pretty quick. So a month or so later, Smirnoff calls me up, comes by my store, and says, hey, I've got somebody I want you to meet. I said, okay, fine. In comes Ray Stevens. So it was like, wow, you know, this was like Willie Mays to a little kid, was Ray Stevens, watching him all those years and stuff. So I got to know Ray, you know, pretty friendly there for like the last year and a half before he passed. And, you know, I was doing sports card shows, bringing in, you know, Joe Montana, Will Clark, Kevin Mitchell, A's and Giants and stuff. And I thought, you know, what would it take to run a wrestling show? And Ray was pretty optimistic, saying, well, you could do it, but you're not going to see anything like you see on TV, because if you don't have TV, you know, it's, you know, you could struggle, but you might be able to get by with it. So we started looking at some buildings, and, you know, it was November of '96 at Washington High School that we decided we're going to run our very first show there, and that was November. But prior to that, back in May, Ray got sick and he passed away. So we still ran the show. Smirnoff pretty much ran everything in the back with the boys, booked the talent and stuff, and then I said to myself, well, we'll run a couple shows and see what happens. 20 years later, we're still doing it. My daughter's a senior in college. My wife is still allows me to come home. You know, it takes a lot of time away from the family life, but she's been great, and you know, we're looking forward to I don't know about another 20 years, but at least another 5 anyway.
Well, we're certainly lucky to be here. And Kirk mentioned one thread that goes through the Big Time Wrestling is that's family. And I remember his daughter taking tickets, his wife selling tickets. Folks, everybody gets into the act. Kirk sets up chairs, they set up the ring. There's 1,000 things he has to do. The amount of phone calls, the booking of talent, the air flights, the hotels, a million things actually for a promoter. Now, so tonight's the big one. It's the 20th anniversary show. What can you tell the fans? What's in store for them?
They'll have a good time tonight. You know, you'll have the BTW champion Hawkeye Shane Cody teaming up with the Honky Tonk Man, taking on the Ballards. Paul London will be on the card against Chemo. We've got Davey Boy Smith's son, Harry Smith, who goes by Davey Boy Smith Jr. He's on the card tonight. We've got a women's title match with Beatrice Domino. So it'll be a fan-friendly night. We've got a lot of alumni coming back tonight. It'll be good to see some of the stars from like when we first started, like Super Diablo, Johnny Payne. They'll be here tonight. So I'm looking forward to it. I never thought this would happen in 20 years, but you know, thank God everybody with Big Time Wrestling, it's a family and everybody helps out, pitches in, and you know, just looking forward to tonight. So get done with this in the morning, go home and maybe lay down for a couple hours and get back up to the pavilion tonight.
It's going to be a big day for us all, including a very special thing. The fourth inductee tonight, it's going to be Wildstorm, goes into the Hall of Fame, and he joins, listen to this list, folks, Woody Farmer, if that's not enough, Pat Patterson, Brett the Hint Banhart, and one of my favorites, Don Morocco.
Yeah.
Tell us about this young kid who started, he was 15 and a half?
years old when he started wrestling with us, and well, you know, he sort of got tricked into his first match when we were up in Redding, California, and Greg Valentine didn't show up, so we're shorthanded, and you know, Wildstorm, we put him in a character that day called White Trash, and he sort of took off from there. But yeah, he was 15 years old, and he started with us, and you know, he ended his career at 26, pretty young.
Yeah.
He's still young. But you know, he moved on and did other things. So we're very happy to have Wildstorm here tonight.
Yeah, he grew up watching Big Time Wrestling, watching the stars of KIRK White's promotion, and wanted to become a wrestler, and so many others that you've had, including the lovely Davina Rose, who now has made a name for herself on a national company as Bailey.
Yep. She started off when she was 18 years old, and came down to train and signed with WWE, spent a few years down at NXT, and you know, you probably watched her this past Monday night on TV. So yeah, and then our referee, Mark Harris, was also with WWE for about 5 years. So yeah, a couple guys have come and gone through here, and you know, again, it's a good family fun. You know, guys are out there signing autographs, taking pictures, and you don't see that at WWE events. I mean, you know, wrestlers are in the back. They don't come out and, you know, just even shake a little kid's hand, take a picture with them, and you get that with us, and it'll be like that tonight as it usually is at all our shows.
Yeah, that's something important, folks. You know, KIRK's instilled that from day one, where a lot of the local talent, they're real people. They have real jobs, and they're genuine human beings, and they're great to meet. You can walk up and approach a wrestler at a Big Time Wrestling show.
Yep.
You could drop your kids off,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
unless Shane Cody hits him in the head with the cowbell.
Well, let's hope
you got to
not.
watch that,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
Other than that, or Dragon Dave, you never know about him. But folks, all of the announcers from the staff, everybody is family friendly.
Yep.
It's a family friendly show. And KIRK, I want you to talk about the family values, unlike what you see on television now, is what you see with Big Time Wrestling, how our angles are wholesome and they're more along the lines of yesteryear.
Well, I mean, you know, I've always said, you know, when I was doing this, that my daughter was so young, I wouldn't want to take her somewhere where I would be embarrassed for what's going on there. And, you know, WWE sort of got away with, you know, blood and maybe nudity and stuff like that. There's none of that there. I mean, it's just, it's a good time. I mean, you want to come back and, you know, bring your grandparents, your grandkids and stuff, and you don't have to worry about them with, you know, something that they probably shouldn't see or hear, and, you know, they have a good time with us. You know, It's just, I have many times where people will call me up and say, what time's your show start? Fine. They drop the kid off there, they go to eat, come back and pick them up at 9:45, and, you know, they've enjoyed a good time with the husband and wife, and the kids were entertained watching wrestling.
Yeah, and in our day, Cow Palace at 8:30 at night. I mean, 8:30 in that neighborhood was bad on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
And then you're getting out of there at 11 o'clock because Harley Race used to waddle to the ring about 10 p.m. for the main event.
Yeah, a lot of good times there. I remember one time we snuck, after the show was over, we snuck in and went up to the dressing room. Everybody was gone, but it was sort of like, you know, one of the security guards said, what are you guys doing here? And we had to scram out of there. But yeah, I mean, it was always a good time. You didn't know as a kid, you know, what you were seeing, if it's real or not. And it was, you'd talk about it because we grew up in Newark, and you'd leave the Cow Palace and talk about Dean Ho and Pat Patterson and Dean Ho and Alexia Smirnoff, or Woody Farmer and the Alaskan Mike York, and you're talking about this and that, and the next thing you know, you're pulling into your driveway and you just talked about wrestling after what you just saw for the last hour. So always a good time, always
That's
a good time.
the way it was,
Yeah.
Except for the time I remember that they stole my father's Volkswagen because he wouldn't pay I think it was $4 parking.
Yeah.
He wanted to park on Geneva, I think. On Geneva, and there it goes. And in those days, there's no cell phones. We had to go all the way back to the box office, get in there, phone my mother, and she says, "I told you to pay the $4." But folks, none of that happens at the Newark Pavilion. It's really a family-friendly show. As we thank you also for allowing your children to watch us and trusting us with your family, because this is a family.
Right. And, over the 20 years, there's a couple guys that are here tonight that were at our very first show 20 years ago. And we'll see them here tonight. But yeah, if it's not for the fans, there is no big time wrestling. So we appreciate everybody that's supported us for 20 years, and we'll keep on going, as long as we can.
Yeah, well, there's a big future for the wrestling business, the way that we presented it to the fans and their reaction to it. You're filling out houses now, Kirk, in the Newark Pavilion, and we've got growing pains. I know the fire marshal came and said, that's it, you're at maximum capacity. We've got the TV show. What's in store for us later on?
Well, we've got, Kofy TV 20 on Friday mornings. We're probably going to have to move into a bigger location because, again, we just did our show in August and there was 800 people there. We did it outside because we knew we wouldn't be able to get that type of a crowd inside. So we're definitely looking to do bigger shows in bigger buildings. We want to stay based here, though, in the Newark Fremont area because, again, this is where we started, and we just don't want to leave it because a small, a building's too small. We'll find something else like the high school or another building around here. Yeah,
there were some great venues. We did a couple of shows there at some of those high schools. Yeah. We sold them out too.
Yeah, Newark Memorial High School, very good. And you look over the 20 years of the guys that have been at the Newark Pavilion, Bret Hart, Rob Van Dam, Kevin Nash, the Hardy Boys, Mick Foley. Just the legends that you would see on WWE or somewhere else were actually in that Newark Pavilion bingo hall. And it's just amazing the guys that have been there. John Cena was there. We did a autograph session with him in 2005 there at the Pavilion. But just a lot of history at the Newark Pavilion. And like I said, it's been good to us, and we're going to try and do another 5 or 10 years anyway. We'll see what happens.
Well, we certainly hope so. Some of the stars tonight. Look at this. We've got a second-generation wrestler, Shane Cody, son of the great Woody Farmer.
Right.
Not only did we grow up watching his father at the Cow Palace, but Cody wrestled at the Cow Palace.
Yeah. You figure you got second generation, and then Shane Cody's son actually wrestled with him, and there was 3 generations there, and it's just it's amazing where it's gone for 20 years. You would have never thought 20 years ago we'd still be doing this. It's amazing, but the good Lord's been good to us, and we're very appreciative of what we have.
Well, certainly, we appreciate all of us on the Big Time Wrestling staff, and I think I speak for a lot of the performers, that we want to thank you, Kirk, for giving us a place to live our dreams.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Like I said, it was something I've always enjoyed when I was a kid. Then an opportunity came up to run a wrestling show, and I had no idea. No idea. I knew how to promote because I did sports card shows, but I had no idea about how to book a wrestler, who to call, any of that. And so we left that up to Ray and Smirnoff, and eventually after the first couple years of, probably 3 or 4 years, we finally figured it out and started doing it on our own. But I think the show that really got us off the ground was probably 1998 at Kennedy High School, when we used D'Lo Brown, Val Venus, and Al Snow. That's when WWE was letting their guys do third-party bookings. And I think right after that is really when we took off. That place was jam-packed, as it should be. Those guys are on TV every week. And boy, it was quite a crowd, and I would say that was probably our biggest show ever, just because the guys that were on it and the people that were there, it was just jam-packed from the last bleacher on top down to the bottom of the floor and to the ring and everywhere else. It was just a huge, huge night.
Marvelous, Kirk. A great storytelling for a great company and great people, a great family. We'll be back with more. Dragon Dave is going to do segment 2 when we come back. Stay tuned, folks. KOFY TV 20's Big Time Wrestling.
I'm Shane Cody, Big Time Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. You're watching Big Time Wrestling on Kofy TV 20.
All right, folks, welcome back to our second segment here at Big Time Wrestling right here on Kofy TV 20. In my opinion, the best segment. You know, we had Hank Renner Jr. earlier, you know, just to warm it up, but I'm going to close it. And with us again, of course, is our promoter, KIRK White. How you doing?
Good, Dave. Good. I don't know if you can man up to Hank Jr. He was pretty good a little bit earlier.
Well, we'll see about that.
Okay.
We'll see about that. But I want to touch upon a couple of things that Hank didn't touch upon, and that is when you took over as a promoter for Big Time Wrestling, talk about some of the challenges that you faced. And basically, you know, launching it, like you said earlier, you never promoted a wrestling, but some of the challenges that you faced.
Well, I mean, you know, not knowing anything, I mean, I knew sports memorabilia, I knew how the sport card shows ran. Wrestling, I had no idea. I sort of had to take the word of Ray and Alexis Smirnoff to get it going. But the challenges were, you know, there really wasn't any other wrestling companies around here. There was one in Hayward, All Pro Wrestling. They really didn't run too many shows other than at their training facility. So there really wasn't a market that was targeted here where, you know, somebody was doing a lot of shows. So we figured, let's do it and see what happens. And to be realistic, I had no idea if we'd draw 50 people or 400 people. The very first show we did, we had 186 people at. And when you see 186 people at Washington High School gym that seats 2,000 people, you're thinking, this is a bust, this is a failure. But we stuck with it, and remember Smirnoff kept on telling me, if you bring names in here that people knew or watched off TV, you're gonna draw more people. So our first two stars we brought in were Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake. They were right off WWE TV, probably, you know, 92, 93, so they were still fresh. And, you know, our crowd at Washington the next show doubled. So, you know, that's where I thought that you need to bring those type of names in here because there is no local wrestling out here that anybody would know who Shane Cody or somebody like that was unless you watched them at a local show, but there really wasn't any local shows here. So I felt that by bringing a star name in here, you're going to draw crowds here.
Now, also talk about some of the early stars of BTW wrestling that started the promotion with you. That you mentioned earlier, Shane Cody, that were with you from the beginning, and some of the other ones that talk about some of the other ones that basically.
Well, I mean, the first couple years, really for Big Time Wrestling, two of the guys that were like the mainstays were Johnny Payne and Super Diablo. They had already been wrestling in this area for a couple years. Earthquake Ferris was another one. Earthquake Ferris wrestled for AWA for a bit, so he was out in Antioch. So those three guys are really, from 96 to probably 98, were like the top indie guys that were around here. And they were in the local magazines and stuff like that, wrestling magazines. But those were the first, I would say, couple guys that came through here that really, you know, sort of kept Big Time Wrestling afloat.
Now, talk about some of the, you know, ever since then, there's been a lot of firsts that have happened in Big Time Wrestling. Talk about some of the first things that we've seen. You know, like right now, for example, we have a BTW Women's Champion, first ever. Also, you know, first time ever. You know, a lot of things have happened that are first. Talk about some of the first things that have broken through in Big Time Wrestling.
You know, it was probably 2002, 2003, where we crowned our first BTW champion. I believe it was Jason Styles at the time. Our BTW tag team champions, we really didn't acknowledge them until probably 2008, 2009. I believe probably about 2005, we did our first Battle Royal, which Battle Royals were very big here in this area back in the 60s and 70s with Roy Shires. In fact, that was one day that you would always go to if you were a wrestling fan. You got to go to the Cow Palace for the Battle Royal.
Yeah.
But I would say, probably our first Fan Fest in 2003 was a first. We did that at the Marriott in Fremont, and we had Bret Hart there, Jim Neidhart, Nick Bockwinkel, Bobby Heenan, Ivory, Bob Orton Jr., Kenji Shibuya was there, Pepper Gomez was there. So that was a first. I don't think anybody around here had done that at the time, and they certainly still haven't done it since then. I think we're sort of the only guys that do these WrestleFest around here.
Yeah, and a couple of other, some of the matches that were some of my favorites that I remember were the midgets. You brought in the midgets, and I don't know of any other promotion that.
Oh yeah, you're right, Dave. We brought the midgets in, I think, the first time around 2007, 2008. Short Sleeve Sampson, and I forgot the gentleman he brought in here, but we just had him, a couple shows ago, and we're going to have him back in December. To me, it's always, it's entertainment, but it's little guys, and a lot of the kids can relate to that because they're looking at them thinking, I'm taller than these guys. But and even the women that we brought in. I mean, we've had Ivory, we've had Natty Neidhart, we've had Mickey James, Awesome Kong, Gail Kim. We've had a lot of women come in and out of here. So, yeah, I mean, it's sort of, I don't want to say it's the first that anyone's ever done, but I mean, I think we probably sort of established that around here. And, there really wasn't any other shows or promotions back then. Now you've got about 12 or 13 promotions running shows around here. And, that's what it's all about, is supporting the indie wrestling that's around here. So, it gives the guys that are around here a little bit more place to work at and stuff. Because, I was only running probably 7 shows a year. So it wasn't like I was running that much. And guys that were here, there really wasn't anywhere else for them to work at. But thank God now there's other promotions where, guys can stay sharp.
Yeah, and we touched upon earlier the women's division.
Yeah.
This year, we've crowned our very first women's BTW champion.
Yeah.
Talk about what led you to to basically start that division.
Well, I think what it is, Dave, is like even 5 years ago when Davina Rose was here, there wasn't very many female wrestlers here. So I was always constantly flying them in, and that got expensive. But, I did it because I always believed that a girl should only wrestle a girl. I'm not one of the promoters that likes girls and guys to wrestle. I guess it's okay now and then, but I always felt that it was worth me the time and effort to bring somebody else with her to work. And as it turned out, it panned out for her because she got really good, and look where she's at now. But I think now, within the last couple of years, there's a lot of women wrestlers around here. And so when I looked at that, I'm thinking, well, it's not going to kill me by flying in a bunch of girls here. There's a lot that are here. There's a lot in Southern California. So I figured, let's try a women's show and see what happens. They draw pretty good. It doesn't draw like our regular shows, but I mean, it's still a couple hundred to 250 people, and we're happy with that. And we'll probably do again February, another Dangerous Damsels. But I think the reason to get into that was there are more girl wrestlers that are around here that are accessible to use.
But and there's one thing that I noticed, especially since when Davina Rose was here, was a lot of the female fan base came to BTW, especially little girls. In the audience, I noticed that a lot, and because they look up to the girls, just like little boys look up to the guys.
Yeah, and there is. I mean, when you have girls here like Beatrice Domino, she's our champion, but she's also a very she's a character, and people love her, and little kids, big kids, older kids look up to her, and it's good. It's just it's something to be proud of. From she was wrestling for another couple groups and really wasn't going anywhere, and came over here about a year and a half ago, and she's had her first matches with us in Montana last June. And she's really caught on, and hopefully she sticks with it, and you never know what could happen with her.
Speaking of characters, talk about some of the characters that have been synonymous with BTW wrestling. Some of the mainstays, one that I can think of is Lemper. Talk about some of the mainstay characters from BTW wrestling.
I mean, you had like Lay Emperor, for instance, wasn't the biggest guy. You certainly noticed him, though.
Yeah. Wasn't the best wrestler, but you know.
Well, he was okay. He was okay. Another guy was his partner, Hop Sing Lee. Okay, well, Hop Sing Lee, first of all, he's Japanese, and he's got a Hop Sing Lee name. He was another one. Dash Riprock was another guy that was, was a fantastic wrestler, always pulled the personified of being in top physical shape when you looked at him, and he was in horrible shape. But Wildstorm, our inductee of the Hall of Fame tonight, he was another guy that was a character. You didn't know who he was. I still don't know what he looks like after.
Yeah, he could be working the corner of changing tires.
He would always have that mask on, and he'd take a shower with that thing on. So I didn't even know. I'd just leave his pay out there in an envelope, and somebody picked it up, so I assumed it was him.
Yeah, and a couple of my other favorite characters, of course, the Ballard brothers.
Ballard brothers are another two. I mean, they're twin brothers. They're here tonight too against Cody and Honky Tonk Man. So you don't know what's going to happen. But they're sneaky, sadistic. The Almighty Sheik was another guy that had a brief run here, but very scary character. I mean. Throwing fireballs in Shane Cody's face. Oh, terrible, terrible, terrible.
Wow. But now let's talk about some of the changes that BTW has gone through, especially with social media. That which in my opinion has become somewhat a huge advantage for promotion. Yeah. For their For
it is. I mean. You're talking to a guy that's still got a flip phone. Yeah. So I don't know anything about social media much. I mean, we've got our web guy, Kevin, and a couple other people that help us, Marvin and a few others. But the social media now, I mean, when I first started running shows, Dave, I was spending money on Monday Night Raw spots. Yeah. And that got really, really pricey. Yeah. So now, I guess it has a lot to do with it since we've been here 20 years. Word of mouth, posters, the social media, the Facebook, that's where your advertising's at. And, when we do our Fan Fest, I mean, that's usually a $20,000 payroll there. And we're really not putting too much into advertising on TV like we used to do because of this social media. Every wrestler has Twitter or Instagram and all that stuff. And most of them are promoting themselves and where they're going to be, which is good. You might be a Ultimo Dragon fan, and if you know he's going to be here, boom, you're on his Twitter as a follower or Instagram or whatever, and you know where he's going to be. So yeah, that's definitely helped. It's helped in a good way, and it's helped in a bad way. There's always the negative of people talking about people, this and that. Like I said, I'm sure there's a lot of people don't agree with me, or but you can't please everybody. I mean, the honest thing is just be honest with people, and if you are, usually most things turn out okay.
But one of the things that I've noticed on social media for BTW is the fans. They tend to express who they would like to see come in.
Right.
Is there anybody that you have not had in big time wrestling that you would like to have? That fans might be asking for.
Fans are always, when are you going to bring John Cena and The Rock in? Yeah. Well, that's not realistic. Yeah. But I mean, we've had John Cena in the past for autograph sessions, but you're not going to see him wrestle on any independent shows. I think, as long as this doesn't go out to Canada where Bret Hart hears it, Hulk Hogan is a guy that I would like to have here.
Yeah.
I know he's had a lot of ups and downs, but I mean, if you think about pro wrestling, whether you're a wrestling fan or not, you know who Hulk Hogan is. Yeah. I think if there was one guy I'd like to do something with before, I mean, I did a private signing with him at WrestleMania, but if some guy could say, man, I brought Hulk Hogan to Newark, that probably would be the icing on the cake.
Yeah, probably would. And of course, I've heard names like Stone Cold Steve Austin.
We've had Steve back in the day, left and right. I mean, the slideshow you're going to see tonight, there's pictures of Steve on there. So, another guy, he doesn't really want to do much, but I mean, I would say, I hate to say it, but probably Hogan. I mean, I had The Rock a few times when he was younger. We've had Cena. We've had Austin. Haven't done anything with Sting. Not that I'm a big Sting fan, but I mean, I haven't done anything with Goldberg either. But other than that, I would have to say Hogan, and most people may not want to see Hogan, but I would say as a professional level, if you had Hulk Hogan, I think you hit the top of the cake.
Now, of course, speaking of the show tonight, talk about specifically the show tonight. Talk about how can fans, get tickets, or how can they, experience tonight's show.
Yeah, well, I mean, the ringside were sold out the night they went on, but there's plenty of general admission tickets tonight. All you got to do is show up at the door. Doors open at 6:30. There'll be a meet meet and greet at 6:30 with the wrestlers, signing autographs. 7:30 bell time. We'll probably have one of the slideshows start right when we get there, and then we'll do at intermission our Hall of Fame inductee with Wildstorm. And then after, I'm sure guys will stick around to sign autographs and stuff. But yeah, parking's free. Tickets are $15 for adults, $7 for kids. It'll be a good time tonight. I'm looking forward to it.
And once again, the website.
Big Time Wrestling's website is btwrestling.com. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find us, and hopefully we see a lot of people here tonight.
And we hope to see you there. And of course, thank you very much, Kirk, for being with us. And it's going to be a great, great show, I'm sure.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
There you go.